weight loss is actually not the goal. The goal is to maintain the healthier weight and to be at a place where you can enjoy a piece of cake without guilt and shame and without thinking like I just blew it and I'm off track now, right? And then it spirals.
Welcome to Talkin' Shit, the podcast where we get real about the unfiltered truths women face in the quest for perfection. I'm Jana, your host, a dietitian and fellow woman navigating the pressure to have it all together, the perfect body, career, relationships, and making it all look effortless. Who set that standard anyway? Here, we're calling out the diet fads, hustle culture, beauty standards, and everything else that keeps us feeling stuck. But we're not just venting, we're diving into how to break free and rewrite the rules on your terms. So grab a coffee or a glass of wine and let's talk some shit. Together, we'll uncover how to live a life that's unapologetically yours. This is Talkin' Shit. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Talkin' Shit podcast, everyone. Today, I have another fellow dietitian on with me, Rebecca. Now, Rebecca shares a very different lens, I think, one that we actually really resonate on. And so I'm really excited to dive into this conversation for today. But Rebecca, before we get there, please introduce yourself to everyone and let us know who you are.
Thanks so much for having me. My name is Rebecca Schubert. I'm a registered dietitian, national board certified health and wellness coach. I've been a dietitian for almost 20 years. And every time I say that, I can't believe it's been that long. I currently live in New Hampshire and I own a private practice called One Step Nutrition Coaching, where I work mainly with women around weight loss.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is a very big topic, weight loss. Tell me, who is like the woman that you usually like work with? Like, what is her story?
Sure. So my ideal client, if you will, is someone who has been dieting for most of her life and who has yet to achieve the outcomes that she's seeking. So she's very good at losing weight, but she struggles with maintaining that. She's very knowledgeable about nutrition. She could probably tell you the calories or grams of fat or grams of protein in almost any food. And she struggles with how to put that knowledge into action consistently and in a sustainable way.
How do those things go together? So how does an individual that is so knowledgeable and has probably been on, several diets.
Correct.
How come she's struggling with weight loss? Hey, friend, quick question before we dive into today's episode. Does dinner stress you out more than it should? Because if you're like most women I talk to, figuring out what to make every single night feels like another full-time job. So if you're tired of the daily what's for dinner stress, I've got something just for you. I've created the What's for Dinner guide with 50 quick, healthy, and blood sugar friendly recipes that are perfect whether you're cooking for yourself or your whole family. No more second guessing, no more last minute takeout. Just real food made simple. Grab your copy for just $9, click the link in the show notes, and make dinner the easiest part of your day. All right, now I'm back to the episode. But seriously, don't wait. Your weeknight sanity will thank you.
Well, this is the challenge, right? Like often people will say, I know what to do. I just can't get myself to do it. And in their mind, it's a failure of motivation or a failure of discipline. And when you look at these people, they're oftentimes very disciplined in other areas of their life, right? They're high achieving. They're often taking care of family members and they have jobs and they have a lot on their plate and they do a lot. So it's not a question of motivation. Oftentimes it's an issue of they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And what I mean by that is there's two types of eaters in my experience. This is just my own philosophy on things. We have people in camp A who don't struggle with food and their bodies. They're people who don't really think about food often. They'll eat when they're hungry. They'll stop when they're full. They can take a bite of a piece of cake, and if it's not so good, they can just throw it in the trash without a second thought. They don't spend a lot of time thinking about food. They don't use food to manage their emotions or or manage stress or things like that. And then we have people in Camp B. And I say this with love when I say people in Camp B, we have issues. we have some issues with food, with our bodies, with dieting, perhaps emotional eating, perhaps binge eating. We tend to think about food a lot, or what we call now food noise, right? We often eat all of the food on our plate. We rarely, if ever, forget to eat a meal. You get the idea. So we have two types of eaters. And when it comes to making sustainable change, there's two overarching types of challenges that we have. We have either a technical challenge or an adaptive challenge. So a technical challenge is typically something that's very black or white. Do this thing, achieve this outcome, right? Eat in a calorie deficit, lose weight. It's very prescriptive, and there's not a lot of nuance to it.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, we have adaptive challenges. Adaptive challenges lie under the surface, and they're often related to deeper underlying psychological or emotional issues. They tend to be very gray. They tend to be very nebulous. They tend to be very messy. And the people who live in Camp B, the people who have some issues around food, they will never solve their challenge with a technical solution. Mm-hmm. So if you are someone in Camp B, then a new diet, a new way of eating is never going to solve the problem long term. You have to understand and address the underlying adaptive challenge. And that's why people are not successful, because you can never solve an adaptive challenge with a technical solution.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing in that is it's not about getting more knowledge. I always like to say it's about shifting to feeling the feels that usually are not felt if you're in group B.
Correct. Yeah. And that's really hard. And it's really hard for a lot of reasons. Number one being, people are seeing, especially now on social media, right? All these fit, happy, perfect looking influencers, right? Who are just like, do this, do my plan, buy my program. And they're really convincing. And so we get this like sense of hope that like, if I buy their thing, I'm going to get the outcome, right? They promise the quick fix, and who doesn't want the quick fix, right?
Sure.
And those plans are often very easy, right? They have rules. Just do this thing, eat within these hours, eat this types of food, eat this number of calories, eat this amount of protein, and you'll see results. And like, that's very easy, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. But what you're saying is the feel the feels. Is that what you said? Feel the feels?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That is hard. It takes continuous commitment and continuous work. And it takes a lot of willingness to be vulnerable, to look at those parts of ourselves that we probably don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think about, dietitians and the work that we do, so for those of us who are trying to essentially sell, feel the feels, do the work, mm-hmm. right? We're competing with these influencers who are like, oh, just buy my program and you're going to get these results.
Right. Right.
And those people are often really good at advertising.
Yes.
And they're often really loud. And so like they get the attention.
Yeah.
And so it's a complex web of challenges that cause it to be so complicated.
Yeah. But I love how you delineate that, right? Like, you're not going to fix the problem, and I'm air quoting problem.
Correct. Yep.
Issue, right? With that tactical aspect, because it's not actually addressing the root cause of what's going on, right?
Correct.
Like you said, like for the woman that has done diet after diet after diet, it's not about a knowledge. You're not lacking any knowledge, right? Like, you know enough to be able to get results. That's when we have to shift it into, you don't need another meal plan. You don't actually probably need more structure to be told what to do.
Correct.
You have to lean into more about how you feel about it, your intuition, the maybe discomfort that starts coming up in many different areas, or the trauma that's happened in this area related to food or your body, right? Like, it starts to get really messy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different layers to it, and it does take someone to be able to lean into that to really uncover what's going on.
And that can be a hard process to uncover what it really is.
Yeah. So for the person that's listening is like, okay, I am can't be, which by the way, I can't be too, right? Like that's why
totally.
I became a dietitian.
Right.
Is there hope, or is this just like, why would they work with a dietitian then if we're not going to give them a meal plan or tell them what to eat? Like, why would they want to work with a dietitian?
Correct. So my whole philosophy is I want to help people be successful long-term. So when clients come to me and they say, my goal is weight loss is actually not the goal. The goal is to maintain the healthier weight and to be at a place where you can enjoy a piece of cake without guilt and shame and without thinking like I just blew it and I'm off track now, right? And then it spirals. So like success is very different. So it's not about just losing weight, it's about sustainability. Ask me your question again, because the other thing I want to mention about that is the Camp A and the Camp B. I want to make it very clear that just because you are in Camp B, it does not mean there is anything wrong with you. Yeah. There is nothing wrong with you if you are someone who's in Camp B. For whatever reason, that's just how we sort of ended up. And it doesn't mean you're less than, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Like everybody has something, right? And this is like just your thing. Mm-hmm. And so I have yet to answer your question, like, is there hope? Yes, there is definitely hope. I will say this. In my almost 20 years, I have never seen someone in Camp B become someone in Camp A. I've never seen them just become someone who just doesn't have issues. But what I do see time and time again is people learning strategies and learning ways to self-manage so that they can eat a healthy, well-balanced diet that incorporates some of their favorite foods, whether that's Cocoa Pebbles or ice cream or brownies, mine, and have it be just part of their normal eating.
Yeah. To where it doesn't spiral the individual.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Like we get so caught up in this like good, bad food, right? Like I was having a conversation with a client recently, and she said something about eating rice, but not potatoes because potatoes are bad. And I was like, let's explore that for a minute here. Like, where did we come to this like conclusion that potatoes are bad, right? Like when you compare a portion of white potato to a portion of rice, the macronutrient content is almost identical.
The same, yeah.
Right? But it's like we come up with these rules, these arbitrary rules in our head that really make it difficult for us to trust. And that's another piece is like we have to regain or learn how to trust ourselves.
God, oh my gosh. So I got the goosebumps on this because this is the biggest thing, right? Like this gets into like the whole idea of like cheat meals, but also like good versus bad, right? Like anytime anyone is sharing with me that they feel like they're going to cheat on their diet, I instantly hear you don't trust yourself, right? Like, because think about, right? Like we have a relationship with food, we have a relationship with ourselves, we have a relationship with others. And if we were to do that dynamic of, okay, say you're in a relationship with someone that just on the weekends they cheat on you, right? Like, instantly like trust gone, right? And so that's the same thing that's happening when it comes to food and your relationship with your body is you can only go so far and then you cheat, which you can never really cheat on yourself or on your diet because your body still consumes it.
Right.
And it instantly takes away that trust factor, which takes away the intuition and you feeling like you can actually navigate the food scene in a way that's beneficial for you. And so having it good or bad really keeps that dynamic going because either you then, right? Like, cause it's not just the food is good or bad. It now becomes you are good and bad,
correct.
Right? So, when I have the good food, and for those of you that are listening, I'm air quoting that, then you are good. But if you're having the bad food, then you are bad, right? Like, so we don't keep it at the food. We now internalize it as something wrong with us.
Right. And we don't even say like, I'm being bad. We say, I am bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like the trust in ourselves, it starts so early. where it's trust, and it's also our ability to recognize our own hunger and fullness. Like, think about an infant, a breastfed baby versus a formula fed baby, right? When a baby's breastfed and the baby stops latching, eats, feeds, stops latching, the mom's like, oh, he's done, right? Formula fed babies, though, what happens? The parent puts 4 ounces in the bottle. The baby drinks 2. The baby spits it out. The parent keeps putting the bottle back in their mouth, right? Until they eat it all, with the best of intentions, right? Because 2 ounces looks like nothing, right? And we think, like, how can this baby survive on this little bit of formula? Yeah. And so we're already, from very early stages, teaching people to override their own hunger and fullness, right? From infancy, oftentimes. And then we get into, preschool and kindergarten and elementary school and teenage years. And then it's like societal norms and cultural beliefs and social media telling us what we should look like and what our body should be able to do and what foods are good and bad. And like, no wonder it's so confusing, right? There's so much noise.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So one thing that I do when I'm working with my coaching clients is we have very similar, like, ideal clients. And so often they have, done every diet out there, and they want to follow the rules. Like, they want to be good and follow the rules. And so they feel like they just need more rules. And as soon as they get those rules, then they can follow them. And then what happens is usually they don't follow them. And that little rebel comes out and says, like, screw you, I'm going to do it my own way.
Right.
Now, there is a difference between outside rules coming in and telling you what to do versus you creating those internal rules that fit best for you. So I like to shift that with individuals of, okay, if you like rules, cool, we'll play with your personality. But they don't come from the outside in. They come from the inside out. And that's you establishing what works best for you based on knowing your body, not based on someone else that's on social media that has no idea who you are, that is just looking to profit off of whatever, right? It's a very different lens and a very different focus to be able to navigate what works best for the individual based on their awareness of their body and their hunger cues, right? Like, okay, maybe they know that if they go 5 hours without a meal, they start really getting hungry and it's too much. And then they notice they binge at nighttime. So their rule, maybe based on their own awareness, is, I know I need to eat every 4 hours or whatever that thing is, right? Like, so again, it's based on intuition, it's based on awareness, and it's based on the knowledge of them, not else.
Well, that's why we say the client is the expert, right? And I think good dietitians will recognize that it's not my job to tell the client what to do. It's my job to elicit from the client what they believe will work best for them. And so in terms of the like feeling all the feels and helping people create their own rules, if we're going to call it rules, the key ingredient there is curiosity. Right? Like, we have to get curious about our own experience. We have to get curious about our hunger and our satisfaction and our fullness. We have to get curious about, what is my body telling me when it's been 5 hours since I've eaten? Or what is it telling me when I eat this food versus that food? And how does this make me feel? And we've become so detached from our bodies that it takes a lot of practice to develop that skill. And so, like, we can get to the point where, with enough curiosity, we recognize how different ways of eating or types of food affect us, so that we don't feel good when we eat a certain way, right? And when something doesn't feel good, it's naturally easy not to do that thing. So instead of like trying to like force ourselves to do a certain thing, when we can get curious and we naturally come to the realization that, like, when I eat the whole pint, like, it just doesn't feel good. But if I eat half, like, it's super tasty and I really enjoy it. Right. And so then there's no struggle. It just becomes easy.
Yeah. Okay. How come this feels very daunting to a lot of individuals? because
like you said, there's no rules.
yes, it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like there's like this franticness that starts taking over when it's like permission has been given to get curious and essentially figure out what works for you, right? Basically. But why is that like so often, so many women have shared with me that they get petrified by that idea.
Like, where does that come from, right? That comes from that fear comes from something very bad is going to happen if I give myself permission to like open up. And when I say open up, I don't just mean like emotionally, but like open up to like there's no bad foods and like nothing is off limit, right? We think we're just gonna like go crazy and like eat all the things. And that can be scary, but like where does that fear come from?
Yeah.
Like what are the messages that we have internalized about food in our bodies that leads us to believe that either we have to be a certain way or that like I don't have enough discipline to manage myself effectively, right? There's like some underlying false belief there.
Right. Yeah. Because there's a big association that, well, if I just give myself permission to eat the food in particular, right? Like, let's go back to the pint of ice cream, then I'm going to have 2 pints of ice cream. I'm not just going to stop at the one.
Correct.
Then the brain just goes wild with that. It's like, oh, well, if you say you can have it, then you're just going to eat everything and you're going to gain weight.
Which and you know what? Maybe we will. Maybe we will eat everything. But over time, we're going to start to naturally realize like, this does not make me feel good.
Yeah.
And like sometimes, we have to start with like sort of the basics. I had a client recently who he grew up in a very health conscious family. He described himself as the fat kid, and his mom would unknowingly make remarks that led him to believe that there was something wrong with him and his body. And so he was in his late 20s, and he would sneak down to the kitchen at night and eat everything, like anything he could find, a box of ice cream cones, if that was all there was, right? Or like whatever. And he would have like tremendous guilt and shame about that. And he came to me because he wanted to lose weight and he wanted rules and he wanted a meal plan. And, he had tried everything in the past. And, we talked about why that wouldn't work. And that what we really needed to do was he needed to learn to become connected to his body and understand what was driving his desire to eat, and also understand how he felt physically and emotionally when he ate in that way, right? And so we had to start with a simple exercise of, am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? And like, that was it. Right. And so for like the first 2 weeks, we just were like detectives, and he just collected data every time he ate about, am I physically hungry right now? And how do I know I'm physically hungry? Right. Or am I emotionally hungry? And how do I know? And like, that was it. And then you start to build awareness of that.
I was just going to say that, right? Like, we cannot change something that we're not aware of. Correct. And so coming back to what you said, as far as curiosity is usually our first step, because it allows us to gain awareness over something that is kind of a blind spot at this time. And when you are able to ask yourself those questions in a very non-judgment way, right? Like, we're just looking for the information to see where the data point lands. Correct. Then it gives you a lot more agency over your own behaviors.
Yeah. So I love the concept of like being a curious detective, right? So instead of asking someone to keep like a food diary, right? Like, measure everything you're eating this week and come back to me and tell me everything you've eaten. I just want you to be curious and pay attention to like, what are you choosing to eat? And what are the circumstances and what's going on in the environment that's driving the desire to eat? Like, that's it. Collect some information. I also love the idea of adopting an attitude of practice, because so often we get stuck in this like all or nothing, I'm good, I'm bad, pass or fail, I succeeded, I failed kind of situation. But when you have an attitude of practice, it's all about trying and learning, right? There's no expectation of outcome. And so that takes so much pressure off, because it's not about, well, I'm going to do this thing. Well, it didn't work, so now I failed. It's about, let's try this thing, see what happened, and then course correct.
Yeah. What new information did we gather?
Correct. Yeah. And just having that attitude of practice and taking the pressure off makes people so much more willing to want to learn.
Yeah. I love how you shifted that though, Rebecca. And I want to just call that out for those that are tuning in, is you shifted the attention away from the food and you turned the attention towards the feeling and the emotion in the body, which for group B individuals is what's necessary, right? Like we don't need more information on the food. We need more information about the emotions and the body work that's really being done there.
Yeah. So another exercise I like to do with folks is, so again, most of my clients are coming in under the guise of they want to lose weight, right? And so another exercise I might have them do is, over the next week, I just want you to collect information about your behavior. And I want you to make 2 lists. Everything I'm doing and not doing that goes against my goal of weight loss.
Ooh, love that.
So it could be, I'm not meal planning. I'm not going grocery shopping. I'm not keeping my trigger foods out of the house. I am choosing to drive by McDonald's in the morning on the way to work, right? I am choosing to have candy on my desk. All of those things, because that, again, is going to give us information. And then we can start to look at, well, like, what's underneath that, right? Like, what's my fear if I don't do that thing, or I do the opposite of that thing? And that can give us a lot of information too, right? It might be, well, I'm afraid that I won't know how to manage my emotions if I don't eat my feelings. It might be, part of me wants to lose weight and part of me is deathly afraid of being thin, right? Like there's some heavy stuff. Or it could be, if I lose weight, what am I going to have in common with my friends? Because what we like to do together is go out and eat and drink. Or, if I am trying to reduce my calorie intake, and every Sunday when I go to grandma's house for dinner, she's going to think I don't love her because I'm refusing like her favorite dish, right? And so like that's the kind of stuff that really drives our behavior that we don't think about. But that's where the real work is. And that's how you get lasting change, is when you start to identify some of those things and you have the willingness and courage to work through those things.
I love this conversation. This is the good stuff. From my perspective, this is the good stuff, because a lot of people say like going back to what you said earlier, right? Like, I know what to do, I just don't do it. And then they shame and guilt the heck out of themselves. But it's because we don't have understanding of what the gap is, right? Like, where's the gap? Like you're saying thing, but you're doing something else. We have to understand what that is. And that's exactly what you just were talking about. There is an undertone of emotions and thoughts that are preventing you from engaging in that very behavior that you say you want to engage in. And that's where we want to get the understanding and the awareness, because now we actually have something to work with, right? Otherwise, we're just like shaming and guilting you, and it does nothing. Like we don't actually do the behavior.
Correct. Or we're just expecting you to like throw all of that aside and follow this meal plan.
Right.
Never going to work. Never going to work.
Yeah. And you talk about the real life things that people actually encounter, right? Like it's in our culture, there is an association with food and love big time. And when start to disconnect that, or you start to, have other connection points, that goes against not only what you've likely been taught and practiced over many years, but it also like goes against the societal norm, right? Like how many people are actually doing that maybe you are connected with. And so there's a lot of social dynamics that start changing.
Yeah. I mean, the messages that we get, right? I was traveling last week and I was at a gym, for the week. I was at the gym in the morning, and I just happened to look at the ladies' room door when I walked into the bathroom, and it didn't have a sign that said ladies. It had a picture like you would see on like the mud flaps of a trucker, like the stripper silhouette kind of thing, right? like the super tiny waist, like the perfect perky boobs and like, the perfect round butt. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is at the gym, right? I'm thinking to myself, like, who here looks like that?
Yeah.
Like, who looks like that, right? Like, this is what I'm supposed to look like, right? Like, here I am busting my ass and like, I don't look like that. But like, those are the messages, right? Then you start to think like, gee, and I don't know how old you are, but I grew up as a teenager in the 90s. And in the early 90s, it was all about, being super thin and doing like tons of cardio and like the sugar-free snack wells kind of generation, right? And so we were all like on restrictive diets so that we could be like size 0, because that was like the holy grail, right? So like, let's be smaller and like, let's eat less, right? And like that doesn't work either, right? You're starving. That does not work. And so what happens then is we get into this like binge and restrict cycle, right? So my whole philosophy is I want to help people learn to eat in a way that is sustainable for them, that incorporates the foods that they enjoy so that there's nothing off limits, right? Like if you love dessert, I want to build that into your plan first. Like let's build your entire plan around dessert. Okay. And I want to teach people how to eat the most amount of food that they possibly can and still achieve their goals, which is like mind blowing for people, right? Because, like we've just been conditioned to like, I have to try to eat the least amount of possible.
Right. Yeah.
And
well, yeah, it kind of sounds like fantasy land. Like it's what I can do all of this and I can still get the results that I want because I've been told completely different narratives for my entire life.
Right.
So how does that actually work with science though?
So it's interesting. So we know that people tend to underreport quite significantly what they're eating.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes through no fault of their own. Food labels are very, very misleading. Most people do not realize that the calorie content of the food is based on the weight of the food, not the volume of the food. Right. So if you were to get like some plain Quaker oats, right, the food label says one serving, 40 grams, and then it says half a cup, 150 calories. So most people, if they're measuring, they're going to take a half a cup scoop, and they're going to scoop it, and they're going to say, oh, that was 150 calories. But that's actually incorrect because the 150 calories is based on the weight of 40 grams. And if you were to actually weigh 40 grams of oats on a food scale, it's closer to a third cup, not a half a cup. And so what people are doing then is if they're tracking, right, they're using something like, I don't know, MyFitnessPal. They say, well, I had half a cup or one serving. But what they really ate was probably a serving and a half, not realizing it, right? So even though their tracker is saying, well, you ate 1,600 calories today, you could have eaten 18, 19, 2,000, whatever else, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes we're overeating, I'll say overeating without realizing it. The other thing that people have a habit of doing a lot, especially people who are quote unquote dieting and trying to restrict, is they will be good, right? Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they just sort of go off the rails and eat whatever they want, right? And so if Monday through Thursday, they're eating 1,600 calories, but then the other 3 days of the week, they're not really counting and they're eating, who knows, 2,500 calories, right? Now their weekly average is 2,000, right? But they don't think about that. They think, well, I can't figure out why I'm not losing weight. I'm only eating 1,600 calories. And so we have to help people to understand if that's something they want to do, how to actually like count and track, right? Because most people, if we're more consistent, like, so if they're having like 4 days of the week where they're very low and 3 days of the week very high, right? Their average is like higher than they think.
Right.
So like you could actually eat more consistently. Does that make sense?
And it still be lower. Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're doing, 4 days of good and 3 days of bad and your average is like 2,000, well, we could bump up to 1,900 every single day. And your average would be 100 calories under what you previously were eating. Yeah.
Correct. But we're like the messaging we get is always, seems to be like, well, you should be eating 1,500 calories a day, right? The only time I'm going to recommend 1,500 calories is if you're like 5 feet tall and like, inactive. But I had this physician that I used to work with, and she would refer clients to me all the time. And it didn't matter if they were a 5 foot tall 70-year-old woman or a 6 foot tall 35-year-old man. She would send them to me with a prescription that says 1,200 calorie diet. Like, it used to drive me nuts, right? And so then this client comes in, they're like, well, my doctor told me I have to do this. And we know doctors, well-meaning, certainly, have no training in nutrition.
Yeah.
Right. And so now, like, we're trying to override what this physician has said.
Yeah.
Right. And so people are getting incorrect messaging all over the place. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is it's not about just dieting to be smaller. It's about becoming more of the best of ourselves. Right. And so, like, I'm a big fan of weightlifting because for a number of reasons, but I want people to feel strong and confident and the best of themselves. Mm-hmm. And that means like eating and training to be strong and fit, not dieting and restricting to be smaller and like less significant. Right. And that's a shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To even have the energy or the mental space to take on even more things outside of the hyper focus on counting calories or losing weight, right? Like, a lot of women have shared, it just took up so much mental space that they weren't really able to do other things. And so there's so much release in that of being able to step away and truly heal your relationship with food and your body.
Mm-hmm. But when you ask most clients, like, what does a healthy diet mean to you? Mm-hmm. Like, they will generally describe what I would consider a healthy diet, mostly whole foods, lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. And then, like, if you ask them, like, what would a healthy day of eating look like for you? They're usually pretty good at like describing what that is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it comes down to we have to help them build their confidence. And we do that through curiosity. And in a lot of ways, I feel like we just need to give them permission. Like, it's amazing to me, like the client I had who was, describing what he called as binges in the evening. When I said to him, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is just a strategy, a coping strategy that you've picked up. It's not serving you in the best way, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It was like, I could just see like his shoulders dropped. Like, he like took a deep breath. Right. And when I said to him, like, okay, I want to get curious about what you're eating this week. And I don't want you to make any changes to your eating. So when you're eating the pint of ice cream, I just want you to pay attention. Right. And like, naturally over our time together, he just stopped eating so much of those things because he realized, like, I don't feel good when I eat like that. Mm-hmm. And so, like, we never even had to get to the point of like counting calories and like food scales and all of that. Like, I rarely need to do that.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't fit for most people's lifestyles anymore. And each time I've asked a client, like, well, do you want to track for the rest of your life? All of them say no. Like, it's usually used as a means to get to the results that they're wanting, but usually it doesn't get them the results that they want. So,
yeah, and it can be a helpful tool to build awareness, right? Sure. Like, I had a client come in and she's like, I can't understand like why my calorie intake is so high. And turns out, like, she was eating a serving of oatmeal with chia seeds and fruit for breakfast with a quarter of a cup of granola on it. Like, all pretty healthy foods, right? But like, that granola was contributing like 15 grams of fat and like 70 grams of carbs, like a lot of calories, right? And like, she had no idea. So it's just like those things, right? And then it's like, okay, well, what do you think we can do to like still make the breakfast enjoyable and have it be more in alignment with your goals? And she's like, you know what? I could probably be just as satisfied with like a tablespoon of granola. Cool. Let's do that. Right. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be so rigid and all consuming. I don't even have one client right now who's like counting or tracking.
Mm-hmm. So I like to use it for the individual that typically restricts during the day and then binges at night. And it takes
Mm-hmm.
people to get there because instantly when we start tracking, if they've had like trauma with tracking,
Uh-huh.
it's not appropriate at that time. But once
Mm-hmm.
we've been working together for a couple of months, usually we can introduce that to show them how much food they actually need to eat to be
Mm-hmm.
able to, fuel and nourish their body. And that's where I think it can be like the awareness piece is so helpful. They're like, oh my gosh, I needed to eat so much,
Mm-hmm.
especially and I felt great, right?
Yeah.
And then we start pulling back. So there's a lot of different tools and techniques, if you will, to be
Yeah.
used, but it depends on where the person is in their journey as well.
Totally. And there's a lot of different ways to use tracking. Like
Mhm.
most people think, like when you say tracking, they think, get a food scale or some measuring cups and like, count and measure every single thing you eat. But we often don't need to do that. I mean, we can do that. You could also choose to just keep track within a certain time period, right? Like if you're a busy mom and you get home at 5 o'clock and like that's often a very difficult time for folks, like that transition time, right? The kids are hungry, you just got home, like everybody's stressed, they're hungry, and you find yourself just like snacking while you're preparing dinner, right? Without even really realizing it. Like committing to just tracking from like 4 to 6 p.m., for example, can be really eye opening.
So much
Or,
information.
yeah, or just tracking from like after dinner to bed. A lot of people, like most people tend to eat the same kind of meals. Like most people eat the same breakfast, the same lunch. There's really no value in just like counting that every single day or tracking it, right? It just becomes tedious and it's not really giving you information. So are there other ways to use tracking that can give you more helpful information?
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that, right? Like, because it's not an all or nothing, right? Like we can use
Correct.
to get us the information that we need to be of most benefit.
Yeah. And then like the all or nothing thing, right? People are like, oh, I want to be keto or I want to be, paleo or vegan. Or it's like, well, can't you be like vegan-ish? Right? Or like, can't you just be paleo-ish? Right? Like, who says you have to do it this way? Like, it's you're the autonomous being, right? Like, you can choose if you want to be pescatarian-ish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Who says? I love that, right? Like, who says? Because ultimately, it is their lifestyle and their routine and where they feel the best. And no one can determine that but them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like in my own experience, I was definitely someone who was in the like good, bad, all or nothing camp, like orthorexic type behaviors, right?
yeah.
Um, and I can't even tell you how much better I feel physically and emotionally now that I've started eating brownies and cocoa pebbles and ice cream, like more regularly.
Mhm.
And it's like they're not even a thing anymore, right?
Yeah.
My favorite first breakfast of the day is cocoa pebbles and chocolate milk. And I don't know why I never discovered this as a kid. Like, why did I never think of putting my cereal in chocolate milk? But like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I put a little bit of protein powder in there, and it's like my perfect like pre-workout fuel because it's fast digesting carbs and it's got a little bit of protein and it like powers my workout, right? But like 20 years ago, I would have been horrified to think of myself eating that. But you know what? Like incorporating those things like makes my eating plan so much more enjoyable, and I don't have to have cheat meals and I don't have to be off track and I'm not bad because it's just part of, right? Like for the people who work in it with kids at all, if you're familiar with Ellen Satter's work, I don't know if you're familiar with Ellen Satter. She talks a lot about the division of responsibility with feeding. And basically, it's the parent's job to provide the food and it's the kid's job to decide what and how much to eat. And Ellen Satter advocates for putting the cookie or the dessert on the dinner plate
Ooh.
so that it's just like part of the dinner, right? So it's not like a thing. And I think there's so much to that, like psychologically, because, as soon as I say, like, don't think about a white bear, what happens? That pops into your head, right? And
Yeah.
so when we have these foods that are off limits, we feel like this sense of urgency that we have to have them. But when they become part of our plan, it's not really a thing anymore.
Yeah. Gosh, Rebecca, that's so true. Like I'll use that strategy during the holiday season because a lot of individuals will get very anxious going into the holiday season with all the food and concerned with gaining weight or whatnot. And one of the things that I share is, well, eat what you want, right? Like, so you're going, like, you don't need to have a full plate with the salad and the protein and whatever. Like, if you're not hungry for that, and you don't want it, and you just want the dessert, eat that. And they're like, what? You know, like, I can do that. I'm like, well, that's what you're hungry for. And you would actually end up overeating if you had that. And then you still want the dessert. So now you're going to eat the dessert, right? Like, so just eat the dessert and be done with it. And it's so interesting when they do that. They're like, I just ate the dessert and I was done with it. And I was good for the rest of the night. And I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel shameful. I wasn't stuffed. And it's like, yes.
Totally. It's like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like if 80% of the time we make healthy choices and the other 20% it's like fun foods. And so if you think about like the average person, if they eat 3 meals and 1 or 2 snacks a day, that's, 28 eating episodes per week. Math is not my strength, but like if 5 of those are less healthy choices,
yeah, you're good.
Like that's what a balanced, healthy diet looks like.
Yeah.
Like it's not just this one thing you ate, right? Like we got to look at the big picture.
Yeah. And I don't know what you think about this, but I usually try to get individuals to expand out to like a 14-day cycle because I am able to capture at least 2 weekends, right?
Oh yeah. Right.
And so if I'm like, okay, what does the 14-day cycle look like? Because then it also like lowers that bar a little bit and lowers the pressure of like, oh, okay. Versus like it being so micro of like each meal has to be perfect. It's like, not really. Like, can we expand it out a little bit more? And that also seems to lower that anxiety that sometimes creeps in with feeling like you have to be perfect with food.
Yeah. I think it's also helpful for people to recognize, especially people who are pursuing weight loss, that weight loss is not linear. You're not going to lose 1 pound per week every week for X amount of weeks, right? Our body fluctuates a lot. And so you might lose 3 pounds 1 week, and then the next week you gain a pound, and then the next week you gain a pound, and then the next week you're down, right? And so your line, if you will, has lots of peaks and valleys. And I think that's important for people to recognize too, that it's not going to be perfectly neat and linear.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I could talk to you forever. Like, I love this topic and I love your approach and just the ability that you have to allow people to talk about the real stuff that is probably bothering them that we really don't have. A lot of people don't have a space for. And it sounds like you really dive into that root cause and allow that curiosity, which gives us so much more individual power. So thank you for all the stuff that you do. And thank you for sharing that knowledge with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Lovely to chat with you.
Yeah.